So I use it. Not, of course, frenzy.
Who's always.
And there's nothing. I mean, added.
Okay, we're gonna call to order at 6:30. Let's rise for the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call starting with Shelley, please.
Shelley, Nancy Caston. Rick Dombrowski. Nicole Living McGrath. Sue Condit.
Robert Carr,
Debbie Sherman.
Steve Colbert.
Any amendments to the agenda? We have the board meeting agenda, minutes of 2/27 to approve. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Okay, audience and citizens?
So I'm gonna state my name, address for the record. Marty Henson.
Go ahead, please.
Take minutes.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so I have a few comments here tonight that I'm really gonna address to Deputy Duke. Because as chairman of the board, among everything else that you do, you're responsible for setting the agenda, right? And I'm here to express my concern about your excessive use of the executive session, all right? You had one last night. The minutes you just approved have 2 or 3 in it. I mean, it's kind of hard to tell how many exactly had at your last meeting. But you know, the executive sessions were created by the Freedom of Information Act, all right? For very specific purposes, right? There's 5 reasons to have an executive session, right? Purchase of real property, individual performance, security matters, pending litigation, and anything that would disclose a protected document. The protected documents are things like tax returns, passwords. They list 20 some protected documents, right? So in the last year, this board has had over 20 executive sessions. All right, now, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an expert in freedom of information. But when I go back and I look at your minutes and I look at your agendas, to me, less than half of those meet the 5 criteria that I just said. All right, it's just all these executive sessions. So, you know, in the last 10 years or so, I've been on several different boards and commissions in the town. And in that whole time, I can almost count on one hand the number of executive sessions I've been involved in. It's 6 or 7, maybe 8. And that's it, all right? You've had 20 in 1 year, all right? But then it doesn't stop there. You come out of the executive session and you make a motion that refers to the executive session. For lack of a better word, that's a secret motion because the public wasn't in the executive, by definition, isn't in the executive session and they don't have minutes. All right, so then it only goes to follow that somewhere there must be secret documents that go with these secret motions, right? So look, maybe you have a lawyer here that, you know, you pay a lot of money to, and he tells you you're following the law, don't worry about it. But to me, you may be following the letter of law, but you're not following the spirit, all right, of having open sessions, right? So I'm just here to ask, you know, to stop with all these executive sessions, stop with the secret motions, the secret documents, and just to have open, clear, transparent public meetings. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes. I'd like to read a letter to, I addressed it to you, Deb, because I'm not sure the proper protocol, but yeah, sorry. I addressed it to you. I don't know all the proper protocol, but I did send it to Tom Hall, and I believe that was then sent out to Mr. Temple. Dear Chair Sherman, I take my position as a member of the Oxford Board of Education seriously. I recognize that I have a fiduciary duty both to the taxpayers of Oxford and to the students in our schools. It's not my job to rubber stamp whatever the superintendent requests, especially when the expenditures of public funds are involved. So when the superintendent's proposed 2024, 2025 budget showed very large pay raises in central office, and I am referring only to the budget book. In central office, in the addition of new administrative positions, again, referring to the budget book, I did what any responsible board member should do. I investigated. My investigation resulted in belligerent personal attacks against me, aimed at me. Most of the other members of the board, including yourself, seemed more interested in protecting the superintendent and pulling a shroud of secrecy over the whole process. Because I am being prevented from exercising my responsibilities as a member of the Oxford Board of Education, I must resign. I have proudly and diligently served on the Board of Education for nearly 8 years. I've served as vice chairperson of the board, as secretary of the board, as chair of the Curriculum Communication Technology Committee, and as a member of every committee of the board, including the Special Education Ad Hoc Committee. I sincerely hope that the Board of Education will consider carefully in all of their endeavors the emails from FOIC that I have shared with you, as well as the more recent ones that I offered to share with you yesterday. I attach all 4 of those emails to this letter for your reference. Just because you say that an elephant is a tiger does not mean that that elephant really is a tiger. The elephant is still an elephant. As my husband often says, a person puts themselves on a slippery slope once that person loses their integrity. I will never compromise or lose my integrity. It is with great regret and with some fear for the students of Oxford that I leave. There, if you could just give that to them.
Thank you. Anybody else? Vic?
Yeah, I don't have anything prepared except the experience that goes through this thing. But it kind of reminds me of no good deed goes unpunished. I think we all heard that. I wonder if they can say the good deeds that you do are remembered forever. You put in 8 years in every role, like you have said, and you provided a lot of guidance to me as a news constable. You and there's some stuff. So with this episode and the treatment and the whole procedure, we're supposed to be the stewards of teaching students, whatever you want to call it, SEL and pride in the community and fairness and all that. So I just suggest that with this event, that maybe we reflect on ourselves and they can say, you know, are we really the guiding light for the students in the school? You know, at this moment, I said, so thank you for your service. And it's been a pleasure. And then get kicked around together.
Mr. Thompson?
George Temple, 2 Gems Farm Road, Oxford. A while ago, a teacher did an experiment in the classroom. They had a pet goldfish in the classroom. And the teacher said, I'm going to take the fish out, put them on the table, and no one is to get out of their seat. If you get out of your seat, you'll be expelled. So fish was there groping for air, flopping around. Finally, a little girl couldn't put up with it anymore. Got up, put the fish back in the aquarium. And the teacher immediately came into that class and she said, you know, that was a little test for you all. Sometimes Takes a little courage to buck system, takes a little courage to buck authority. But this little girl did what was necessary, what was right to do. And she got up and did it despite potential for what happens to her. And that little girl is Shelley Castellan. I started this session very enthusiastic about this board. Many of you I appointed myself, and I thought you would do the right thing. I never thought I would see this. This, whether you like it or not, and a lot of times Barney will tell you, and anybody will tell you, you know, we have to take our lumps down and down. A lot of times you have to have the guts to say, it's the way I feel, it's the way I stand. You know, I think we need this position. I think we need this project. I think we need to do this. And you have to stand up to people. But that's why you have the job that you have. Now, I was here last night and I must say, I was encouraged by some of what some of you said. Very discouraged by the rest. I think it showed a lack of moral courage. You know, the form over substance. Why anybody of her, and I said her, Shelley's integrity and experience should ever be put in question is beyond me. Never in my mind. Shelley was one, by the way, that I appointed. When I say I'm for the selectmen. You can share the blame with me. So, you know, to me, you know, you kind of let me down. You know, I think transparency is important. I hate it sometimes. I hate it. But you know, gotta sit there and put your big boy pants on, go up there and take it. And that's what we do. Shelley, I want to thank you for the years that you did. And I know the dedication. I know for a fact that this, that Shelley is, joined the meeting here while she was in intensive care. I never heard of that. But that's the dedication that that lady had. That's the dedication that you could have focused and should have focused. And you're, that failure to do that, it's just that failure, in my opinion. So, you know, Board of Selectmen will be coming up with a replacement for Shelley. We'll have a seat we'll be able to fill. We'll never be able to replace Shelley. Thank you.
Anyone else? Anything to say, Bobby?
Shelley, I would like to thank you for your years of service and your dedication. I haven't been here very long, but I admire your courage. I admire your ability to speak out. So thank you very much. Yep.
Oh, Rob, I was actually going to go ahead.
Both as a resident of Oxford and as superintendent. So I want to thank you. I've known you for a long time now, well before I even was an employee here. You and I crossed paths back when I was working in AT in Western Public Schools through your work. So both as a former colleague of yours, as superintendent and as a resident, I just want to thank you for your years of service.
Thank you.
Stephanie.
Stephanie Miller, to Vienna Drive. I'm here on behalf of Shelley, who is resigning from the BOE tonight after almost a decade of service to the Oxford School District. What a sad day for the children of this town. They are losing a staunch supporter of education, especially the group that Shelley fights so hardest for, the special education students. For those of you who may not know, Shelley has had a very long and successful career in education, launching her own business that advocated for special education students and their parents in the state of Connecticut and beyond. People in this room probably sought her guidance. Parents from all corners of this state sought her services because she fought for their children in order for them to have the necessary tools to be successful in a school environment. In Oxford Board of Education, you had that for free.
Pamela Fitch. Hi, guys. I haven't been here in a while, and I apologize. But when I look at every one of you, and I was a volunteer in this town on many different boards, and I still volunteer a lot of my time. And I admire everybody that sits behind these desks because it takes a lot of work, a lot of time, and people don't understand. Like, I tell people that all the time, even in teaching, they don't know what goes on behind closed doors and how long people spend researching and things like that. And Shelley, you were one of the hardest people sometimes on the Board of Education, fighting. And like I said, special ed is very close and dear to me. And you were right there for them all the time. And I really do appreciate that. And I'm glad that you said something about the budget that came before you guys, because I was just wondering, a few years back, we fought, many of you guys that were on this board, to cut back on the staff that we cut back on, and now they're coming back again. And when I look at that, I walk through our schools, and I walk through all of them because I admire every teacher and every grade and everything about Oxford. And I see things that every school needs. Okay, I see our school, our society has gone because there's so many kids with anxiety, so many kids that need so much from us. I mean, I talk to kids that I don't even have in my class all the time, that aren't in any of my classes, and they talk to me. And I feel where these students are coming from, but we aren't getting more staff to directly help those students. I would love to see another 5 guidance counselors, you know, or psychologists. And I know psychologists cost big bucks these days because they're short at hand. But when I see somebody in our school system getting the raises that they are, and they haven't even proven themselves to our town, that hurts. Okay, because I look also at the contracts that go into the people that do work directly, the paras and nurses, the teachers. And I look at, and I told you to Robert, I talked to you before about all this. Some people are going back in pay because of insurance going up and getting a low amount of increase. When you see this, and they work directly with our kids. And our kids are everything in this town. When I get a kid that wants to help with the Veterans Dinner, that aren't looking for volunteer hours, aren't looking for the glory of it all, just want to come out and help. That's what we're supposed to be producing in our town, because Oxford is a volunteer town. Even though, you know, we still have people being paid here and there and here and there. You have still so many students that are filling these volunteer positions on the fire department, on the ambulance. We are raising these kind of kids, but we also need that help. And also, I believe that with administration, I believe we have to get a backbone in Oxford. We have to be able to stand up to parents that doubt us. And the way we do that is to prove ourselves. And I believe in our school system. I believe that every one of you guys, everybody should have to prove themselves to so we don't have that person that wants to sue the school system. Or we did something wrong. And if we do something wrong, admit it. You know, stand up and say, okay, I'm sorry, I screwed up. Because we are not perfect. And I tell my students that all the time. I'll tell my students, listen, I was grading, I was going back from grade book to project. If I missed grading your project and I handed it back to you, please look at Power School, because I'm not perfect. And nobody is, but the people that volunteer for our town, like you all, are looked upon, that they should be looked upon in a very glorious way. And Shelley, I want to thank you for all the years that you've done. I enjoy seeing your poodle walk around the Oxford High parking lot, talking to yourself. It's nice to see you, and it's nice to see neighbors working together. And I hope that Oxford never, especially this Board of Education, never lose the camaraderie that you need for our kids and for each other. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Bill Miller, 2 Deanna Drive. Some of you I know and realize that I was on the Board of Education for several years. And I served with Shelley for probably 3, maybe 4 years, a couple years ago. And I can tell you, nobody, in my experience, nobody took their oath. And when you do take an oath to be on this board, took their oath more seriously and diligently than Shelley did. Her dedication to the people of the town and to the residents was second to none. And Shelley, I want to thank you for your service on this board. It was an honor and it was a privilege to serve with you, and I'm better because of it. So again, Shelley, thank you very much.
Anyone else? And move on to board correspondence. You have any?
Nope.
School calendar for 24-25.
At our last meeting, I presented to the board a proposed calendar. In that calendar, we had our professional learning days scheduled for Wednesdays, throughout the year, other release days and full PD days. The feedback that I got from the board at the time, the feedback we got from the parents, in the audience was that there's a preference for us to look at moving either back to full days on Fridays or a hybrid between the two. So in my newsletter that week, I did a survey to all parenting staff. On that survey, results showed that majority of staff and parents wanted the professional learning days to be on Fridays. That's easy. We moved that back there. But I also asked an open-ended question for feedback on the calendar as well. In that survey, the feedback said, take a look at the return back from the winter vacation. So the way that the schedule was, the year fell, January 2nd is on a Thursday. So when you talked to putting the calendar together, we felt it'd be better for staff and students just to come back on a Monday as opposed to a 2-day school calendar. The feedback asked us to take a look at that again. So I went back and I probed, did a second survey to my staff and my parent newsletter on Friday and asked that follow-up question. That follow-up question resulted in a split. 190 people that responded said they preferred the return on January 6th, and 164 said they preferred returning on January 2nd. The majority of our elementary school staff would prefer to return on January 2nd as Quaker Farms. Their feelings for our youngest children, it'll be more difficult for them to be out of school for full 2 weeks before returning on Monday the 6th. Majority of our secondary staff felt it was more important for students to be in school and return on the 6th, thinking that there would be a higher rate of absences if we have vacation ending on the 2nd. So actually, I took a look at that data as well, and that data showed us that 2 years ago, actually 2020, was the last time that we had a January 2nd return on a Thursday. When I look at that attendance data, it's no different than the attendance of students coming back on Monday or Tuesday and Monday and Tuesday this past year or Tuesday and Wednesday for the 2nd and 3rd. So the placement of it didn't really make that big a difference for student attendance per se. I'm recommending that we return on January 2nd. Majority of the feedback that came in, while the numbers showed a higher percent rate, showed that they would prefer on the 6th. A lot of the comments from parents was it would be easier from a childcare perspective for students to return on the 2nd. So between that and our youngest children being at elementary school and the feedback of better for learners, I'm recommending the 2nd. I'm happy to go back and look further or take your feedback on how you want me to proceed on this. It's kind of split down the middle.
Anybody have any questions?
Have you looked at what other schools in the area do?
We would have been the only one that would be going back on the 6th.
Okay. Thank you.
With that being said, most of Fairfield County now has Fairfield breakdown. So it's all in the place.
Anybody else have any questions? Dick?
This is just maybe a rhetorical question, I did this in the past, and some other town did it, and I look at the weeks of school. And it seems like, the other person did a percentage, it was outstanding, is that there's not too many full weeks of teaching. It's a half day for this, that day for that. There's, I see pink and yellow, I really don't want to sit and try to analyze this whole thing. I think you're gonna do whatever you're gonna do, but, when a student misses a day, and we have people being tardy, it's a whole program to get kids to school, but. We have all these broken up teaching sessions of short weeks. And I looked up on EdSnet or whatever it's called, and I was trying to look up what students were missing who were tardy. And then what came up is that we've gone from, I think it's absenteeism for teachers went from 9 days to 13 days. So again, probably going back to what I said before, we gotta start to look at ourselves, is that if students are being hammered to be to school and they're missing a teacher on 1/2 or 1 day every week, and we have absenteeism at 13.5% last year, 9%. I think there's a time for an inward look. This is going to be whatever it's going to be, but it brings up the problem of how many days are the kids really in the school with their teacher if you have this and you have that. You got a big void.
I will say this, that the teacher and staff attendance is very different than the school calendar, and teachers bargain for a contract. In that contract, teachers have contractual right for a certain number of sick days and personal days. That's their right as managers, employees, they bargained over in that. And we, as Board of Education, have signed a contract that gives those staff members the guaranteed right to take those days. In fact, sick days, they're allowed to accumulate up to beyond 180 days. So if the teacher is sick, for example, time, they're allowed to have those days. That's part of their contractual rights.
I got all that. But a student comes in here, and in theory, he's paying $20,000 per year. That's what our average cost is. So that's like $240,000 that he's supposed to be spending for an education. And when you have, your contract and stuff like that, I think it's time that we take a look and see, because I can't understand this thing, if it's teachers or staff or whatever it is, but it means the ship is not fully loaded that many of the time. And the contracts and the things that we do need to start to focus on, how do we get a full week of schooling and how do we get to the students?
Sure.
Let's move on.
Just a quick statement, there's 6 half days for professional development. Kids are in school 180 days. Not counting the 2 full days, teachers have professional development, those would not be counted as school
They're not
day,
counted.
kids are not. So we have 6 half days throughout the school year. That there's a half day release with professional development, which I believe investing in the teachers is very important. We've been lacking that in the past, quite honestly. So I get the confusion of it. And I'm sure this is not uncommon having professional days in school system.
There's some districts that do it every week.
I know Nanawa gets out every Wednesday, at least an hour of professional development. My daughter goes there. But, and back to your point on, just so I can comment on it, I think the second makes sense. We don't need to deviate from standard. We don't need to have kids out longer. Add more confusion. So I'm in favor of going back a normal time.
And I just want to, we've pushed a lot for professional development over the last year and a half, so we felt that as a board that it was important to give our staff the time that they needed to learn the programs that we're asking to, write curriculum, work together to help the kids. So professional development's been one of our pushes for at least the last year and a half, maybe 2. Bobby, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So, Dr. Miller, you're recommending to come back on the second. Is that correct?
For two primary reasons. One, for the founders that said, from a childcare perspective, it's easier for them to have the students return on the second because they're going back to work.
Yeah.
And our most fragile students are our youngest students. So if our teachers are saying it's better for them as learners to be in for those 2 days rather than being out for a full 2 weeks, have to lean into what our teachers with the most fragile students are telling us.
Okay, and I happen to agree with that. And the other question I have is, we talked about going to Wednesdays, just want to make it clear, we're going back to
Back
the
on Fridays.
Fridays.
Friday, the only day that's
Okay.
not on Friday
Yeah.
is the election day.
that's
That
what-
has to be
And that's
everybody.
what the survey showed us.
Yes,
We surveyed both parents, and teachers, and overwhelmingly, they agreed to go
overwhelmingly,
back.
yes, right,
Okay.
yes.
And again, I'm in agreement with
Always
that.
such a couple.
I talked to my wife about that and she's like, what? We're doing Wednesdays?
I think-
So,
Parent customer, voice of the faculty customer, consider.
And I think that thank you for doing that. I think that we, as a board, really struggled with Wednesdays, so. Is draft B the one we're approving?
So draft B, when you do the motion, which I have under action items, you're gonna motion to approve the calendar that has been uploaded, except for returning on January 2nd. I did not make that change because the survey went out on Friday. I tabulated the results today to get data in, and I had to post the calendar to the board agenda on Friday before the survey went out.
So motion to, I'm just gonna write it out and then somebody can.
Motion to approve the calendar with the modification of January 2nd as the return from the winter break.
I'm sorry, can I, but while you're doing that, can I
Yeah.
ask another question? So, to pick up a little bit on Vic's point here, we're contractually obligated to do the professional development
Mhm.
a certain number of times and et cetera. Is that correct?
For full PD days, so teachers are guaranteed in their contract, 184 workdays, of the 184 workdays for professional learning.
Okay.
2 of those days we do before school, one is convocation, and the other is a full professional learning day.
Okay.
And then we have 2 additional full PD days during the school year. It's always done in November for election day, because we have to shut down schools, so that's statewide. And then we typically choose a date in March for the second full PD day. Several years ago, we adopted also early release days, saying we want students to be in school, but once a month when you don't have the full PD day, we would like to honor the professional learning for teachers and have students go home midday
Mhm.
and embed that into the calendar. As Steve was saying, a lot of school districts do that on a weekly basis. We said we really can't do that weekly,
Right.
but we'd like to do it at least once a month when possible. We don't do it in May because of all the testing in schools. So that one is a little more difficult.
Mhm.
So we've made it more condition in the calendar to make sure that those are safeguarded.
At the risk of not making some teachers very happy, has there ever been any thought to doing this after school hours?
Okay.
We'd have to
You
pay.
have to pay.
Okay.
And I think that teachers would say they probably wouldn't want to be teaching all day long and then stay 3 or 4 hours after the school.
I get it, but I do want to ask the question, like, I'm just, again, I'm new, I'm learning, I'm trying to figure out how things are going.
Right, there's also some questions that can be from some parents after the meeting, could we have, instead of 2 early release days, 1 full professional learning day? The only way to do that is to add on to the teacher contract on 185 days, or 186 days. So that because you still need to pay 180 school days for working,
Mhm.
you're tagging on additional professional learning on top of that.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Do you have a question? No?
No, I
Oh, okay.
just comment back to just as continue with board operating, that we get details on when you have PD topics.
Right, I typically, when we
Yeah.
actually do, I provide it to the board.
Yep.
Yeah. It's part of my Friday update.
Friday update, right.
Friday, and part of my
That's
update
right.
today is that next Friday we actually have professional learning, so,
You want to come up?
yes.
Okay, motion to approve calendar with modification of January 2nd return from winter break.
Is there a second?
Second.
What do you guys? Any discussion? Any more discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Okay, Connecticut Educators Support Funds Initiative 2024.
Okay, so by board policy, anytime we have a donation of any item that's over $500, the Board of Education needs to receive an update from me with an approval to accept the donations. This is kind of a little bit different. The way that this rolled out, the state of Connecticut had excess funds from their ESSER at the federal level, and it decided to grant $4.2 million to teachers across the state. In doing so, they did not do it uniformly so every teacher across state need get the same value. What they said was it would be first come, first serve and allow teachers to log on to Donors Choose, create an account and post a project up to $1,000 until the $4.2 million ran out. So I provided that information to the teachers and we had a large number of teachers. I was very pleased to see the number of teachers that applied. It did not go through our business department. It did not go through purchase orders. It went directly from the teacher to Donors Choose. I don't have a way to find out exactly what every teacher acquired. All I was able to do is to find out that teachers had applied and how much they applied for. Even that is what the teachers reported to me. So there could be some teachers out there that did receive something that I'm not aware of. What I'm providing to you today is what I am aware of. And the fact that we had as many teachers as we did, which is I'm so grateful and thankful to teachers that took the time to do this. And we started to receive the funds almost immediately. But we brought in overnight in the course of under 3 or 4 days, $41,581.05 worth of resources to the school district for free. And I am so grateful and so thankful that we had so many teachers that took the time and said, I want to make my classroom better, I want to make my learning environment better for my students, and this is how I'm going to do that. So I'm asking the board tonight not to have a list of every single item because I don't have that, but to approve en masse the $41,581 that were brought in resources to the district.
I didn't understand, what are you asking us to do?
There's a motion to approve, based on our board policy, to approve and accept the donation.
This is money from the state.
Yes. Not spending money there.
You're spending money, but nothing is ever free.
Well,
I
now-
mean,
Well, yeah,
I got
already-
thrown out.
already spent.
I understand that.
And the money actually has already been spent and resources already here.
So the money is for that particular teacher's own classroom.
And that's correct. And the way that donations work for both our district and the guidelines within Donors Choose. So Donors Choose has a set of rules. And if you look on the website, it states that any resources purchased by teacher is owned by the school district, not the teacher. And that's also by our board policy. Anything that's donated to the school district by default is owned by the school district, is why the board needs to take a motion to accept and approve that the resources then become accepted by the school district.
I'll make the motion.
Can I,
You can do it during
Yeah,
discussion.
I didn't have, I got this, I'm just getting.
Should we just do the motion and we can do that during discussion? If you don't-
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
all right.
The Board of Education, per policy 3280, approves and accepts a donation of $41,581.05 of resources through the Connecticut Educator Support Funds Initiative 2024.
Second.
Discussion.
Okay, that's what this list was. When I got it, I wasn't sure if they were asking or we received it.
No.
That's
That's what, so the-
$800 and I
Right.
remember going through some of the other committees for the saxophone, the electronic piano and all
Yeah.
that, stuff. So, I think this is great, It's never free money, but it's a help to the school. The thing is, maybe it's a separate discussion, is that many times I tried to donate things to the school, friends and associates, people my age are offloading stuff, and believe it or not, just because we're older, it's not junk. And the thing is that, from machines to, laser printing machines and cutting and stuff like that. And we need a procedure and a welcoming type of an approach. I tried to donate books and they said, well, the books are talking about capacitors and things. Well, you can get to printed circuit boards and chips and stuff without learning about the previous. The books are no good because they're old, the technologies. An ultrasonic cell disruptor that they can break around, flippers by themselves, they lead you into research. Oh, that's too much money, you have to go through another board. I'm just saying, simplify it so that these people that are leaving here, I go to Florida, I just drop it off in South Carolina, Florida, they go, give me a big hug and say, welcome. Here, it's almost impossible to give anything away. I set up a program where I gave a car from a dealership to a teacher for every month. And all I got was grief, is that I'd rather have the money. It was supposed to be a fun thing, a reward for the teacher for doing good, voted on by their peers. It became a nightmare, I said, forget it. So we need an attitude change that they can get things into the school quicker from the people that were moving out. They got good stuff. So put that maybe on your agenda that they can work with me, that they can get some additional thing. This is great. You know, I donated, I think, up to $500 in STEM stuff for fifth grade. You know, it took me from October to just after Christmas, I think, to get it through. That's how hard it is to work at the school. And this was the previous administration. So I'm just saying, look at these things. The town is a volunteer town and we have stuff to give. If you make it difficult, we'll just give it someplace else.
I'll respond very quickly that the board policy clearly dictates how donations are done. Any teacher is welcome to ask for a donation to be accepted. We're open anytime. I receive an email from that teacher or that staff member. If it's under $500, I grant it and I approve it if it fits our needs. If it's over $500, it comes to the Board of Education. I haven't received many requests from schools asking for a donation, but if we do, I mean, I received one 2 days ago. And I immediately asked our director of instruction to look into it, to make sure that we're compatible, that we accept anything that fits and aligns to our curriculum and our needs.
It's a wonderful experience for you, but it wasn't for me or some of my friends. So we should get together and talk about it because it doesn't work from my end.
Well, I'm sure we can continue that discussion. I just would like to thank the staff for coming up with such a great list, taking the time to apply for all these things and for doing it for the kids. So I really am impressed with the list that's here. So anybody else?
And I will also add that the teachers, this went out in my staff newsletter midday on a Friday. Teachers submitted Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, they took time of the weekend to do it, and those that did it within 24 hours had funding, and by then we were getting the resources in. So it's just wonderful to see the number of teachers that took the time to do this to better for their kids.
I think it's great. I mean, I think count, it seems like there's like 40 awards,
Yes,
which is
Amazing.
what, a quarter of the teaching
yes,
population?
yeah,
Oh,
yes,
that's
So
great.
it's a great.
across the board.
That's great work. by them.
So, you guys ready to vote? Motion to, oh, you did the motion, all in favor, opposed, abstain, motion carries. Thank you. School calendar,
Just go down to the bypass that now.
public content before the superintendent.
No, approval of the increasing educator diversity plan.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So the state of Connecticut, this past year, required that every school district by March 15th approve a increasing educator diversity plan. That scrambled all the school districts on what does that look like? They did a number of webinars, they did group sessions, a number of our admins went and attended a workshop on how to write the plan. We were given a template and we filled in the template basically. What you see before you is the plan that we're asking the board to approve so that we can submit the minutes and the document to the state of Connecticut, and then we can check the box and move on.
Any discussion?
We want to make the motion and then
Oh,
have the
sure.
discussion.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
The Board of Education, make a motion to, for the Board of Education to adopt the Oxford Increasing Educator Diversity Plan as presented by the administration.
Is there a second?
This is before the vote.
It's
This
just
is
for
just,
Second, I'll second.
Okay, discussion.
Can we explain there's another document here, and it says extension or something?
So it was that we were not too sure how long it was gonna take us to get the document filled out. And how quickly we would get it to the board for approval, knowing that we need the board approval before we submit to the state. So we asked the state, could we have an extension to give us an extension for 30 days if we needed that?
So that's to make
Yes,
So we have an
that 60
extension.
days
coming.
technically
yeah,
now,
if
right?
we don't want to approve it tonight, if there's any revisions, I didn't know if this would take one read or multiple reads. I asked the state just by chance, if it takes longer, we have an extension. They said yes.
I just.
no, no, you're absolutely.
Yeah, I'd like to read the statute a little more. I think in this case, I'm tired of state heavy-handedness on school districts. I'm all for ensuring we have the right person for the right job. I don't like being boxed into metrics. I don't think anybody deserves that. I think it's a disservice to a lot of people. I'd like to make sure that I understand what the minimum requirements are for this ask. And we adhere to the minimum requirements of the state statute.
I can say that when drafted a plan, we try to keep it as minimal as possible without really anything sort of associated with quotas or anything like that. We try to make it as low as possible.
I mean, to me, this reminds me of the situation when the state said that we need to put, you know, tampons and other feminine products in the boys' bathrooms. And they said, you need to do that. We said, no, we don't. I don't think that's appropriate. And this, when you start putting quotas, you know, it's a slippery slope when it's quotas, when it's, you know, you get an inch and then you take, I didn't even know if parts of this seemed even legal, because I know that there was a court case, and I believe it got to the Supreme Court, talking about, diversity in admissions for colleges, and I think Yale and a few others, they got their hands slapped pretty hard. And it was found to be unconstitutional to use diversity as a deciding factor. And if diversity, if employment is first looked at, well, do we get enough candidates of a certain box? Did we check all the boxes? Did we get enough people? Because we need to make sure that we hire enough of any category. It's a dangerous slope, and I don't know how much of it is still legal. When admissions can't, you know.
We can't even ask an application what your ethnicity is.
Right. So how are you supposed to make, you have to advertise in diverse media? So the regular media doesn't count, it needs to be diverse media? I'm just like.
The fact of the matter is that regardless of what's on paper, our objective is to always hire the best candidates possible. That's what we're trying to do. When we're trying to find the most expert staff, some of those will be diverse candidates and some will not be diverse candidates. The fact of the matter is right now, in the Connecticut workforce, there is a real shortage of teachers, real shortage of paraprofessionals, real shortage of administrators. We're not looking for the ability to solve the problem locally. It falls on universities to attract and get more diverse and more talented people that we can hire.
So the question is, what's the penalty if we don't submit something? For discussion's sake, if we don't submit something to the state, what's the penalty?
I don't have that information. It's an unfunded mandate. We'd have to find out what the State Board of Education would do to us if we didn't have to submit it.
There's nothing in the statute.
That's what I didn't
Right.
read anything.
There's nothing in the
I
statute that
can
talks
add a
about.
little bit to that, because in the cover letter or in the, whatever the proclamation is that you can submit whatever you want and they will review it and tell you what they want. That's in the initial 2 letters there. So whatever you come up with, they're gonna come up with what they want. So it's consensus is always a lovely word, which means I can sign my right to somebody else, you know. So basically, you're in a consensus mode, they're gonna tell you what to do. But I looked at it a different way. I looked at the high level of people that are involved in this, you know, and it's really quite impressive. We have this staff there. But one of the last things was we have a goal of 2% over 5 years. So if you take 2% of 140 teachers, you know, you're looking to take it and improve your whole program for half a teacher. You know, I mean, this is like the most bizarre thing from a mathematical standpoint. The amount of leverage and money you're putting in to look for a half a teacher over 5 years is like, you know, these people are smoking.
I would just like to say that I seconded this just to get to the discussion. All right, and that's the only reason I seconded this, and I concur with my colleagues that have already commented.
So I guess.
I can just read this real quick, because someone asked the question. What if we don't submit a plan, submit one on time? Are there consequences, penalties for not submitting? CSDA seeks to be proactive, not punitive, because the legislation is silent on consequences or penalties. So again, this is my personal opinion. This is another manipulation, a waste of taxpayer money. I'm not in favor of it. I'm not in favor of a lot of things. The state pushes down on districts who are meant to be governed by themselves, what's best interest of their town employees and town taxpayers. So I don't see consequences, but I just, even to 6.2%, I know that's a number you guys came up with, right, to build a plan. It's a couple of people over 5 years, but I don't want to be held to any number.
Want to hire the best person. Regardless.
And yeah, we got a job to do here. We need the best regardless. I don't care where they come from, who they are, period. I don't want to be holding to a metric that they go, well, let me see your numbers, you didn't do it. No, there's no punitive penalties here. No, not being held to a metric.
Bobby?
Yeah, so previous planning and zoning, committee member, commissioner, whatever you want to call it. This heavy handedness coming down from the state is a huge thing in that area. You know, my personal opinion on this is that it should be a local decision, shouldn't be done but from the state. It shouldn't be mandated from the state. And frankly, I believe, you know, our kids in this school system deserve the very best applicant that we can get, regardless of what, you know, what race, color, creed, et cetera, gender, is mandated by the state. And if there's no penalty, then I personally would like to just ignore it.
What I will say to comment all of that is that we always will, and whether this plan is in place or not, always seek to hire the best candidates. Part of this plan is attracting a diverse workforce, but part of this plan is also retaining a diverse workforce. In other words, those staff members that might be different than the person next to them, how do they feel a sense of belonging? How do they feel that this is a place that I want to continue to work in? So while the part of it is an effort to bring people in, but the other part of the effort is whoever is here, making sure that this is the most welcoming place that they can be at. So while I hear a concern over a quote and trying to get to number, part of this is looking at our work culture and our environment here to make sure this is the best place that our staff wants to work. And if you read through the plan, I think you'll see that part of this is take away diversity, take away that word itself. Part of this is how do we make this place even better than it currently is? And what are the steps that we can strategically take to try and achieve that? And so you've got we attracting new staff members. What were we doing with the staff members that are currently here? So I think there are valuable components to this plan that are addressed in it.
So, I agree that that's a very important thing, and we don't want to take that away, but you don't need a motion to create a welcoming,
No, we do not.
nurturing environment.
No, we do not.
We don't need a plan submitted to the state that tells them how we do that. Again, that's a local matter. We should seek to keep all of our staff, have a strong budget that supports our staff and our students in our district, have the resources and services provided to them that meets the needs of the students. You know, address discipline situations and having enough staff to adequately handle the needs of the students in crisis. Those are the kinds of things I hope we invest our energy in. And if there are things that can make life easier for staff in general, I'm all for it. But I don't think we need a motion to make that happen.
Okay, anybody else have anything to say? We have a motion to approve. All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Motion fails. So. Move on. Report of the superintendent? Right.
The month of March is Board of Education Recognition Month. So I am recognizing all of you, your dedication, your commitment, your passion, your desire to do the right thing for the children of Oxford. As volunteers, most people think that you probably attend 2 meetings a month and you come at 6:30, you go home at 8, and we see you 2 weeks later. And then in the summer, there's no communication, you've gone for the 2 months like the teachers are. I know for a fact that you are working evenings, you're working weekends. Some of you are here 2 or 3 nights a week with me. Some of you are on text messages or phone calls with me on a Saturday morning, Sunday morning, or a Sunday night, whatever it might be. I know that you're working a lot of hours and you are volunteers. And in that role, I could not do my job without the backing and without the support and the amount of effort and time and dedication that you put into it. And I want to thank you for that. And we do have a few things special planned for you this month, and I'm gonna turn it over to Megan, who's gonna share with you what we're gonna do.
So we're gonna split it, so it'll be this board meeting and then the board meeting in 2 weeks. We do have a special gift for you, and then also we'd like to donate a book in, one of your favorite books to a library here at our public schools, in which you'll be able to write a special message to the students of our district.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thanks for recognition.
We appreciate it.
Walk around, but then you can
Okay.
finish your.
Yeah, right. And so the other part of that is, at our next board meeting where we have the board training, we're actually gonna have a dinner for you, that evening.
Thank you. I hope it wasn't in the regular person.
And also be another, surprise. that we'll get you.
Wonderful surprises for us.
So I am. As volunteers, your payment is in terms of a thank you and some recognition that we do.
So our board training will be at 5:30 on that night, on the
Okay.
26th, the regular next board meeting.
Okay, two, yes, I can make it.
I need wheels for it.
So dinner will be part of that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was
Okay.
bringing pizza.
You're staying.
So the other part of this, the other part of my report to you,
What name do you have?
Before. I was like, this is great. What is this?
I usually open things when it's on, so I wouldn't notice that till later.
Thank you very much.
That was
Yeah,
very
thank you,
nice.
guys.
Thank you.
yes,
That's my zen, so that's my calming mechanism.
I'll be fast. We received some questions online over the last couple weeks in Facebook about recognizing students, especially, not just athletically, but, academically. The question came to us at the board level, came to us in some of the forums that we did last year on putting the honor roll online. I don't know when it stopped here in the district. I made the assumption that it would stop for security reasons. But I don't know exactly what year it was stopped. It was not here at all while I've been here. So when it went into Facebook again, I began to do some more digging into that. I reached out to a number of school districts in the area. Some districts like Newtown do it on their local hometown newspaper. Other districts like Bethel do it just on their website. Other districts don't do it at all. Brookfield, Ridgefield, Region 12, Region 15, they've abandoned that years ago. With that being said, we are going to restart it again now, starting with the third quarter, for the middle school and high school. Parents do sign a release, but I do want to, remind parents that this is the method that they can opt out within Power School. And then begin the process again of recognizing the students with the honor roll, starting with the third quarter. So thank you for the parents that brought it up again. Now and last year, I know it took us a little bit, but we did get there. Thank you.
So when you do that list, would you bring it to the board when the list is prepared so we can acknowledge those?
We
students?
certainly
At
can.
least as a board, at a board level, we can, have the list and.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we don't have a hometown newspaper, just a local Oxford paper, so it will be on our website, it'll be on social media, and then parents can share that out, whatever matter they want. If they want to send it to voice, if they want to send it to patch, it's a public information, they're welcome to do so.
Will it be honors and high honors or just high honors or just honors general?
But we're also looking for other ways to recognize, so before this even came up, I had already had a conversation with, Sylvia at the middle school. They do the weekly, hometown heroes. That's a student that's, done something special over the course of that week. So she and I already talked about coming, bring those students in June, to the board meeting and actually recognizing all those students that were recognized during the course of the year. Once again, another way of recognizing student achievement beyond, pure grades or pure, athletics, how else they contributing to the fabric of our school community. So that's, in motion, we'll be doing that. We did have a situation yesterday where, around 3 o'clock or so, a road was closed, and that impacted middle school transportation. One of the buses couldn't get down a road. There was some, misinformation and some information that came in as to where the bus could go, so we were told, one street, information got out to parents, they were told after that the bus couldn't actually get the students there. We were then told the students were being brought to Quaker Farms, or they were middle school students, we had to divert them over to a different building. With that being said, over a dozen messages went out to parents between a middle school bus and 2 Quaker Farms and Goes buses. And in the interim, after we told some Quaker Farms and Goes students parents that their children would be in the school. Then the road opened up and we're able to get the bus there. So we had some parents pick the kids up, some parents have their kids dropped off. There's a lot of different things happening all from this one road. I know some of it hit Facebook and I got some emails today. With that being said, every time that we go through something, we say, how do we do better? And we had those conversations this morning about what would we do to improve the practice for next time. Lessons learned, we did some stuff good and some stuff that we need to do better next time. So that's just how we need to operate.
Dr. Miller, so I was actually at Quaker Farms.
I know.
When this happened, and a lot of the issue actually, from the 10 or 15 minutes that I was there during that whole thing, was kids with cell phones on the bus. And they had information or thought they had information and they were contacting their parents and. You know,
That doesn't help you.
no, not really, but nothing you can do about that, but
Right.
that was my observation about it, so.
And to make matters even more complicated, the Quaker Farms phone system went down in the middle of all of that. So our concern was, okay, parents not sure where the kids are, parents trying to call the school can't answer. So we sent out a message to all the parents saying, if you need to call school, call here. And we did have two secretaries that stayed well past their commitment, well past 4:30, Marlene and Beth were both here, well past their hours. Neither were told to do so. They both said, I'm gonna stay until we resolve the situation, and I'm thankful that they both did so. And Wendy as well, so there are actually 3 secretaries that stayed late yesterday to help out with that here.
Please thank you.
I will do so. We talked about professional learning next Friday, March 22nd will be the next early release day for staff. Just a reminder to parents that that's taking place. And then tomorrow and Thursday for Quaker Farm and Goes is our teacher conferences. So those 2 schools are on an early release day for teacher conferences, Wednesday and Thursday. Our blue team at the middle school, 7th grade, is doing a book collection, a children's book collection, for an organization called Read to Grow, which is a nonprofit organization promoting children's language skills and literacy. The book donations are being accepted through the entire month of March, but more specifically, they're doing a book drop-off this Saturday from 10 a.m. to 11:30 at the middle school. They're looking for any books, new or used, that could be then dropped off and then provided to this organization. It's been on my newsletters for 2 weeks now. It's on social media, but help spread the word, and any books that we can donate are obviously you have to do the cost for that.
What time was it?
It's Saturday from 10 a.m. to 11:30. And I'm sure the teachers and students are involved will be thankful to any donations that come in. And I'm thankful that for all of our schools that do many community service projects that they do. This is just another example of how we give back to the greater community. And then finally, I hope to see a lot of parents and any staff members that are interested in the budget process. Tomorrow night is a very important meeting at the Board of Finance at 6 p.m. in the town meeting room. We are presenting our budget to the Board of Finance. We will be answering questions from the Board of Finance. The Board of Finance will be diving into it tomorrow night and beyond, and it'll be important for our parents to attend that meeting so they can hear the questions they're asked. And for the Board of Finance to see the support that is amongst the community and interest in our Board of Education budget.
Any questions for Dr. Miller? Okay, audience of citizens, the second batch. Anybody have anything they want to say?
I'm gonna sit here.
Christine Maloney, Macintosh
You
Drive.
want me for you to?
No.
It's not a microphone.
So first I want to thank you, Dr. Miller, for coming back the honor roll. It's unfortunate that Facebook had to, I don't even know those people that started that thread, but I thank them for speaking up, and I'm looking forward to seeing all the kids from the middle school and the high school in there. So again, thank you and the board. My next question is more of, is there any sort of plans for April 8th for that partial solar eclipse that's going to happen when some schools are leaving, going out to the bus? Now with partial in Connecticut, I read it's only gonna be at 93%. My husband already bought the glasses for my son, but I'm wondering, is there any sort of plans that would be a great way to bring the school community together to do something? Or by school, whatever, I know the high school will be out, but for the rest of them from the middle school goes and Quaker, if any of the teachers are looking to do anything as a school district. So that's it.
We talked about it a little bit during curriculum yesterday. So we had a couple of concerns. I know that there was a request that the middle school get some glasses purchased. We're gonna keep talking about it. I don't think it's a no-go with anything. It's just sometimes a little bit of legality and parents opting out. Parents can pick up kids, so we're gonna continue having some discussion about it.
The town library is also doing a program that during the eclipse, so we're, one of the things might be to provide information to parents and have these children to go and participate in that. And I know that there are other districts that are allowing students to be picked up early, excuse absence of third parties to participate in those activities. That's something we definitely would do for any parent that wants to do that. As Deb just said, there is concern that students traveling home during the eclipse time. There's also concerns from a liability standpoint. If we provide every student a sunglasses, and they go outside and they don't use it properly, what happens to that child then? And what happens, are we then legally liable for any damage that might occur? So there's conversations that we're having, but there's the concerns that we have.
But if my kid brings his own in that we purchased, is that okay? If you have to take that in the bus?
That definitely would be fine, yes, yes.
I think getting the information out is
Yeah.
to everybody, maybe some Instagram posts or Facebook posts, getting that information out and say, hey, this is happening on April 8th. Protect your child. We're gonna do the best that we can,
That's for, that's.
Information is
We talked about it.
That's her plan, yeah.
That's her full moon. Those people need like. The hardest day to be in the classroom is when you have big natural energy like that.
That's-
Is there a safety issue if kids are outside during that time?
And my friend was there.
So kids are walking outside.
And that's what they're.
That's where.
Yeah, so.
There's concerns about dismissal time, but
Okay.
there's also concerns about actually taking groups of students outside, to actually see it. So it's there's counts of both of those.
Okay, but it is literal dismissal time.
Yeah.
That's kind of an issue.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Middle school,
Concerns we-
middle school, right,
well, the youngest kids, right? It was till what time?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like one.
No, but no, I mean, what time's the actual eclipse?
Oh, it started at
It's-
two
it
thirty-seven.
goes to 4:30
So
something.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's, you've got the littlest kids in the district walking outside and probably looking straight up at the sky.
And then
So-
getting on the bus.
Yeah, and getting out of, yeah, so that's,
That's
that
the
is
problem.
looking out the
So
window.
even if we did an activity where we brought students outside to see the solar eclipse, there's still the concern that students go home during that period of time.
During the meeting yesterday, I took the liberty to look up last night, there are window shades available. Okay, because one of the things I mentioned is that the kids were inside, and if there was a window shade that met the requirements of glasses, you could have the kids stand around, it could actually be described to them and still have them in the room. And really they're combined with it, not outside taking their glasses off to look, I'll blue my eyes, I'm gonna get, cooked. So they are available and they're, they're like $87, $90, $120. So I don't know what the time frame is for the eclipse and stuff like that, but there are alternatives that may be feasible. It may not be feasible, I don't know, but there is qualified, certified shades. A whole bunch of kids can look around through two windows and see the eclipse. So it's a possible solution for it.
Anybody else in the audience have any questions?
Well, April 8th and 9th is the district-wide art show. Let's get a little creative on these days. But it's later, so we're set. So you put that on your calendar because that's always a fun thing to watch the kids.
And please send me the details I can get on social media as well.
Yes, yeah.
April
it's
8th and 9th, what
8th
time?
and 9th. It's from 6 to 8 at night. I talked to all the art teachers and they'll both be there both nights.
I
It's a
encourage
great
everybody to go.
phenomenal-
Yeah, at the high school in the gym
It was a
and
phenomenal
out in the
showing.
main lobby.
It was a phenomenal showing last year.
Yeah, it was great.
Is this all grade levels?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
K-12.
Can I add just one thing for the safety of the kids? The reason that it's such a dangerous thing is that because it becomes nighttime, your eyes dilate to a full pupil. And sun rays are still coming down, so now we're focused on the retina, so that's. in
Right.
Very, very simple terms, it's, kids are pretty smart today, that they could understand that. And the retina there, once it's cooked, it's gone.
Right,
Yeah.
well, that's why I would think it would be a major safety concern. Well, I'm thinking of the pre-Kers getting out of
Yeah.
class,
Yeah.
look at the sun,
Yeah.
where did the sun go?
Yeah.
Like, it's,
Right,
it's
that's-
more the middle school and the high school are more in tune. If anything.
Yeah, it's just the
upper
upper.
or something.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
I'll give you $50 and we'll go for five. This is what.
When I was in school and we actually had to stay until after it was finished. In school, I remember because we all had like these like weird little things to look through. And that's the school
Yeah,
actually
boxes.
kept us. They would not let us leave because it was a liability unless our parents came and got us early.
I think those are the things that are in discussion.
Yeah.
More debate to come.
Yeah.
But just, I mean, not to belabor this, but the main, since we have voice of the parent here, is it more on concern of the liability or the?
I just thought it was something cool to do. for
So
the
more on the
district.
science opportunity
Exactly.
versus I'm concerned about kids looking up and going blind.
I didn't bring up.
Okay, I just wanted. Not gonna be ordered, I'm just trying to gather intel.
I see this as a tremendous education opportunity
Yeah.
for students, while there's a tremendous safety concern at the same time.
Correct.
I'm
Fair
that
point.
parent who would like me take their children out of school to go do it with them.
Yeah.
Because we think it's really cool,
Same.
but I'm thinking as a teacher, oh my gosh, that's in the middle of my dismissal time. You all just lit a huge light bulb and now I'm going, oh snap, what are we gonna do? Like, I don't want pre-Kers, especially that I teach, I don't want them out. They would, I know what they're gonna do.
Right.
They're gonna tell
And
them,
that was-
they're gonna look
and it's at 3:30.
maybe tell them to look at the sun.
Like fish.
Oh,
And 3:30 is like when it's supposed to be at its peak, which is when
Which are
quicker,
literally when we're walking out the door. to
Right.
the mall.
so that's one of our major.
That's quite the opposite.
Okay. Anybody,
Together in New York.
are we going with that?
We
Okay.
got all the information, thank you.
Yes.
We're like, we're bouncing back and forth on this.
Okay.
It's, the ball's in your court now.
Next meeting we have.
Talk about the eclipse.
Yeah. Because it's such a cool thing.
It is cool.
Had no idea.
Yeah.
Zero clue.
So I'm gonna do my report
Are you
now.
just finding out?
Yeah, I'm learning a lot.
So I'm gonna do my report now. I'm just gonna, remind everyone to, come to the Board of Finance meeting tomorrow night. It's really important and we would appreciate people coming to just, so listen. We have, our budget is very clear. We've made, significant documentation with grants and staffing and all of that, so I would appreciate people coming out. I do want to address, the earlier comments that were made this evening. I am very sorry to see Shelley leave, regardless of what anyone else thinks. I've been friends with Shelley for 17 years. I do feel very badly that she left. But unfortunately, there were some concerns of, information. And we needed to, as a board, manage what we needed to manage. Did we do it perfectly? Maybe not, but it was not done maliciously. It was not done to have the outcome that it had. So, that's just what I have to say. Facilities, Mike?
Sure. So we have our next meeting. We had to shift it from its regular time to Thursday. Is it Thursday or Wednesday? Wednesday, the 27th. I know it's not a Thursday because I don't want to do that, but at 6 p.m. We're going to be meeting in person. And I think for this meeting, am I correct in saying that both Karen Asteriak and Joe Stockmull are invited?
They're invited. I have to confirm that they can be.
We'll confirm. The goal is that to encourage Joe and Kara who do the sports, whether it's for, whatever season, we want to start getting them at the facility subcommittee. So if they have feedback for us, especially about facilities and the use of our school and our property, we want it on our radar, and we don't want them to we want to give them a voice and give them the ability to communicate with the board. So the subcommittee it's under its purview, so we're going to be including them in it. We're excited to hear, how things are going and just keep that communication going throughout the year and into the future. So that's all I have.
Anybody have any questions for Mike?
I just want to add something real quick. So we've begun the ASO interviews. I think we have some really high quality people that have applied. We will be finishing up. I'm not sure what the next step will be, but I believe we'll be finishing up the interview on Thursday. Some very highly qualified people have applied.
Thank you for visiting.
Yeah, I think we're just.
Yeah, it's Ms. Case, myself, Mike DiAgostino and Taff are conducting the interviews.
That's our open high school.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that, Sue.
When are minutes for all of the committee meetings posted? A lot of them aren't ever posted, and it's hard if you're not attending all the meetings to know what's actually going on. So we could be a little bit better at posting minutes from each committee meeting.
You got it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm guilty.
Um,
They're all sitting on my
guilty.
hard drive. I'm sorry.
So if you do them, send them to me and I can upload them for you.
Do they go on the board docs or they?
You know how to
They
do
go
it.
like
Yeah, they just go
I
down.
can
to-
also-
Not Google.
No.
It's board docs.
Board
And I
docs.
can,
That's me and I.
Yeah, I can
it's
help.
pretty, you can just copy and paste it. And I can also.
We'll do a better job.
And just one last thing to add, some of the board members met with George Temple and the selectmen to discuss security. We could not go into any specifics because it was a public meeting, but enough information was shared that Mr. Temple approved the plan that we have, so we're in the process of it. We're moving forward with it. It was already funded partially by the board. In a prior meeting, we made a motion to share some of our, was it ESSER funds? To help cover the cost for some of the security improvements. It's forefront on our mind, whether we're looking at a new position, director of security, or we're looking at ways to improve the security of the school. It is a priority for the board, so.
Anybody else for Mike? Curriculum, I'll do. We had our meeting last night. Attached to the curriculum agenda, you'll see the mid-year assessment report. So if you guys want to look at that, we'll come back to that once as we go on throughout the year. Just gives you an idea. Attached to the curriculum agenda from
In
last
board docs.
night
Okay.
in board doc. And then we talked about the eclipse. A little bit. So you know, the fun thing.
Never heard of it.
So we talked about that for a little while. So, that was pretty much our, curriculum meeting last night. Policy, Nicole.
All right, so our very efficient policy committee tackled 7 policies last meeting. They're called weighted grading for honored classes, improved completion rates for FAFSA forms, graduation requirements, administration of medications, increasing educator diversity plan, FMLA, and the employment and student teacher checks. Instead of going into each and every policy now, because it's for a first read, if I can direct your attention to the minutes, which should be posted.
They were posted.
They are posted.
They're there too.
I did those.
Go ahead and take a look at the synopsis for each of the policies. If anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out and I'll do my best to get you the answers that you need. Thank you.
Finance. Steve?
Yeah, so we met 5 days ago. The meeting was bifurcated into 2 sections. It was more what's the upcoming strategy for the Board of Finance meeting and town meeting with regard to the budget. We discussed adding a few exhibits to our budget book, which will be on the website. We also,
It's on the website.
it is, it's updated, okay. And I mean, it is there, but
The
we're in-
latest version needs to be that we.
Yeah,
just today.
yeah, we have one.
Yeah.
We talked about a very simple infographic that can be consumed with the highest level points of, hey, we're asking for this amount. If we were to do nothing else, just adhere to contracts, staff, insurance, HSA, it would be, 4% X of the overall 5.4 ask. So we're just trying to add some exhibits to clarify and make it very simple for people to understand what the budget
And that
is and what it stands for.
that exhibit is in the budget book.
It is.
And I posted that on social media on Friday and again today, and it will be again tomorrow. So just it's a one sheet piece of paper for anyone to pick up and say, this is what the budget's about.
So I probably should pay attention to our social media site. Yeah, sorry.
So I've actually noticed, I've noticed and it looks good.
So that's what we talked about, just a little bit high level around where we're going with the budget. The other half of the meeting was discussing the January results. So because of budget, we're a little behind on the monthly operating rhythm that we have. We covered down on just really high level summary, 91% of our existing budget is encumbered or expended. We went through some of the grant funding levels and what's left there. We also discussed the balances and activity with regard to the student and central activities account. We did highlight early discussions on the potential of a P card for the district where it would facilitate vendor purchases. Many are not dealing with POs and old fashioned cutting checks any longer, which makes things difficult. Pretty common practice today. We discussed approach to maybe look into that a little further. I think Howard did some due diligence and we're gonna come back with some information. I can't remember what we said on that. We'll come back with some more.
Because there's a potential rebate that we'd be getting this time. So we want to try and make sure we understand how the accounting works for that, as well as if there's any other, also I'm looking into to see if there's any other programs out there that give a rebate, not just going, again, what we're looking at is through CASBO, which is the business, Association of Business Officers, and they work through Bank of Montreal. But I do know from my prior district that Chase Bank also offers this. So I just want to get the ball and get all the opportunities presented to you.
That would be great.
And then we'll bring that back to the board because it requires a board motion for us to then submit further application.
Yeah, it has to be, or that's the motion on it. You have to then put that, the meeting minutes have to then go to the bank to say that the board did this.
It doesn't change any about our processes as far as approving the purchases.
Vehicle payment.
So we anticipate bringing that either in the next meeting or in the meeting in April.
Let me keep going here. So we talked about that. We also went through line item adjustments. So for many of you that know, the way it works in schools and municipalities, we have to align our budget line. So if we're in deficit in one line, we must take from another line and balance it out. I'm used to corporate, we run a negative, and at the end of the year, if our total adds up the right place, we're good, but here we have to make sure each month that we align per policy that the budget, each line item is funded. So we went through, November, December, and January adjustments that had to be made all at once. It's in the document attached, under facilities, under finance. So we're gonna need to make a motion for policy to enable Howard to make those necessary budget realignments in compliance with our policy. So a motion to approve line item transfers from November, December, and January as approved by the Finance Committee.
Second.
Discussion?
Anything big?
So, there is big movement around. Again, a lot of the budget, what happens is, at the end of the day, right? So you get a budget, you have, from the day it's approved, it's wrong. I'll tell you that already, right? Because at the end of the day, there's gonna be, so you get an appropriation and then you think you've laid out the budget as it is. But teachers leave, teachers go, staff leaves, staff comes and goes. And so what you're doing is you're adjusting the budget. You'll have expenses that you have in one line that you thought they were gonna be, so utilities or something like that. So you use the funds that are there, move it up into a line. Perhaps you had to hire a teacher at a higher level, or a teacher, you hire a teacher at a lower level. So now that gets moved around. So to answer your question, there's nothing really major that's standing out at this point in time. It's just moving the funds around to where they're needed at this point in time. The big thing that has been happening this year is maintenance of the buildings. That is where the biggest expense have been coming and where the biggest, for lack of a better term, miss on the budget is occurring at this point in time. So we're utilizing funds where we can to make up that difference.
Excuse me, what was that area again?
Maintenance of the facilities.
Oh.
There's a lot of, doing a lot of work to get the facilities up, specifically in the HVAC. Matter of fact, we're using some funds from the ESSER fund to also backfill
where we can, because that's also making it, you can use it for safety, you can also use it for healthy buildings and HVAC plays into that. So we're trying to balance that out between the operating budget and creative, so that we're not overburdening the operating budget.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions?
Just, yeah, just, this is the normal process of,
When we do,
that's,
when we have transfers, we're supposed to approve them.
that's where you can see, but
In the past, I think the transfers happened at the end of the year,
Mhm.
whereas right now, I think the purpose of doing it is one, to have a better projection of what our surplus could be.
And in the past, we
If there is
typically,
gonna be
in the past, we typically have come to you with maybe 4, 5 transfers per month. But this is just a large bulk based upon
It's
this.
a large bulk and it's multiple months, right?
well, I know a number of years ago, when Jason first came on with that consultant. And we had shortages and overruns where money was sitting there. Some sections not having any money. So. I mean, I remember his comments were is that it was just poorly run. And the budgeting was wrong, but it's this is the normal mechanism of paying periods. I mean, it's like, it doesn't make sense to me, but you're the man. I trust
You have a total budget, right? So it's just, you have like, just how many lines there are of that budget, not everyone's gonna be correct, right? So there's gonna be hits and misses in each one of those lines. For the most part, you're gonna get it right, you're gonna get the salary lines right, which is the bulk of the salary, because you know the person, you know what account they're in.
Yeah.
But you're gonna miss in a bunch of other lines, so that's like maintenance this year. No one predicted that we're gonna have all these maintenance items, so they're gonna be negative. But we're gonna have positives, like one of the items you'll see in my report, if you read the report, that we received $814,000 change from the state for our excess cost funds. Now, that's a little bit over what was budgeted for, so that's excess funds that we can use in other places. So that's the give and take, it's the puts and takes of a budget.
I'm with you, I trust you.
So,
And Howard wasn't here when the budget was built. He came out, the budget had been built.
You inherited this one. I inherited this one, next one will be.
I think that's You said that in public.
It's better, it's right.
Put it in minutes.
And typically, it's very common practice for August for the board to be presented the final set of transfers to balance everything out. They're allowed to sort of now kind of preset some of those final.
Yeah, very good. I know some of you weren't here. It was actually a very large transfer that I asked, I think it was in August. That was asked for, it was like almost twice the size of what we're seeing here because of all the puts and takes that you have to go through every line. This is gonna make that much smaller entry because it's gonna already be leveled out as we go month by month, which is also gonna happen. So I'm gonna start adding to my report that you see in here. So I'm gonna add a projection of where those balances are going to be at year end as best we can tell going forward each month going out. So what that's gonna help us do is that if we know that this balance is zero, we can zero that out, got it to where it needs to be. Then we can just focus on the lines that are positives or negative and understand where those are going and what we think they're going to be at year end. So it gives us an idea. Are we going to have a surplus or a deficit come June 30th?
And we shouldn't have last minute surprises at that time.
Because one thing, when you're doing zero-based budgeting, and you're doing all this moving around, is when you look at that account and it shows that it's on score, on target, whatever, but it really isn't because you have to take money from another one. Is there an accountability for that? And eventually that you go, that zero-based budgeting, you blew it. You know, you were getting too much and you were getting, I mean, how do you? Why, I want to go to an accounting thing. It's just, it's like a straight.
No, it's not an accounting thing, right? So it's at the end of the day. So let's say utilities, right? Utilities, I can guarantee you, no one will ever hit exactly on utilities because you can't. Because you don't know what the electrical costs are going to be or go according to how much electric we're going to use. What we do is when I created the budget for utilities, this new budget that's coming up, when I created it, I took what our usage was for the past 12 months. What I then said is, okay, what's our average kilowatt per hour, right? I try and be as scientific as possible about my calculation. And then I adjusted a little bit saying the prices are gonna go up 5%, or maybe they're gonna go up 10%. I don't know that. And so there's a lot of variables in a budget that you just cannot calculate. You just can't know. You have to have a crystal ball to be able to do that. We don't. So we just make our best estimate scientifically as best we can when we budget. So when you do that, you get it right. You get close, right? So you're getting close. So if you're within 1 or 2%, you're hoping that that's a good number. Last thing then. So the other thing we talked
Wait, can we
about.
do the approve the motion?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's it. We gotta-
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carried.
So the other thing is, we're finalizing, a timeline document. There's still discussion about previous surplus, so that's gonna be another exhibit available to the public.
And it's in the budget.
It's in the budget. Okay, great. Thank you. I know we looked at it
Yeah.
today. Starting in February, our next meeting, we're gonna review February's finances. As mentioned in prior board meetings, town meetings, we're gonna be super transparent. Whether we're excessive or, we have surplus, we're gonna monitor that and project that and communicate that monthly. And if we do have a surplus, it's gonna afford us opportunities at that point in time. If we feel good about it. Again, numbers can change. Unknowns can fly into the district at any time that we weren't expecting. Something breaks for $100,000, who knows?
Say it.
But we're going to do our best to make sure if we are running a surplus, that we can appropriately apply some of that to necessary areas that have maybe been neglected in the past, as an example. So you will see a projection each month in the packet and discussion around if we feel like we have a list or something we need to take care of that we feel comfortable enough that we can expend that on that item.
Any questions?
Yeah. There was a meeting last night with, about capital improvements. Is that an appropriate question for this part? So how did that go?
So from what I understand, the full list of all of our capital requests were added to the town request and approved last night. It now gets forwarded to the Board of Finance. Typically, at our presentation to the Board of Finance, they'll ask us operating questions, but they will also ask us capital questions. So we'll be prepared to answer those tomorrow night. And then they would deliberate, they'll figure out from that list what they want to be presented to the town in the public town meeting at the end of April, which will then get voted on, to be placed on the ballot for referendum in May.
Okay, thank you.
Speaking at that meeting, curious.
He'll be
From the
speaking.
Board of Ed.
I will be there, Howard will be there, Mike will be there, Steve will be there, most of us will be there.
Yep.
We'll be there Friday night.
Any other questions for Steve for finance?
If you have any, hit me offline too. I think it's important we lock the step with everything, numbers.
Liaison reports, Sue? You have anything?
We had a meeting last night, I was not there. But I think it was pretty simple. Basically, we've got bingo coming up on Thursday. We have about 85 people signed up, so that's good. We started to plan for senior lock-in. We've got all of the fun things booked already. Lisa's been in contact with the mural people and
Okay.
different ways that we can, work with that. I don't know if she's shared with the,
She has,
okay.
yeah.
And that's about it.
I don't have a report. Well, I think PTO is next week. I think
So,
so. I don't have a PTO report.
yeah.
And I think that's all for Liz.
Is there one quick thing? Coach Stocks and retiring from coaching.
Yeah,
Are we doing anything for him? Any plans in the works?
We are actually planning a district-wide retirement staff recognition, which will probably be toward the end of May, possibly beginning of June. And he, along with any other retirees, whether it be a stipend position or a full position, along with other staff
Yeah.
members that are not retiring, will have an opportunity to be recognized at that.
Okay.
any other questions? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.